CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy. This series on social movements in Africa was shot at the margins of the third Baraza in Accra. The Baraza is a product of the Zimbabwe Alliance, a project that the Conversations on African Philanthropy covered at the end of 2024. Social movements play huge roles in our society. At the same time, they face massive challenges and obstacles. In this series, we take a look at the different manifestations and typologies of social movements on the continent. The series is but a snapshot. More is needed to fully get a comprehensive grasp of social movements. Join us as we talk to actors from the DRC to Zambia, Malawi, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and many more.
Good morning to everyone. Welcome to our Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Beatrice Moyo. I am very excited to be shooting this series of Conversations on Social Movements. We are shooting this special episode at the margins of the third Baraza taking place here in Accra, Ghana. I'm joined this morning by Beatrice, who is the program officer at TrustAfrica responsible for equitable development. Beatrice, welcome to the Conversations.
Thank you, Prof.
And thank you so much for making the time. You and I met long time ago when you were still working for an organization in Malawi that was focused on...
It's the National Smallholder Farmers Association.
Yes, NASFAM. And here we are today. You are responsible for equitable development within TrustAfrica. Maybe let's start and talk a bit about that program. What does it seek to do? What are your responsibilities? And how can other civil society organizations that have an interest in that particular area participate?
So with my work with TrustAfrica is mainly on equitable development, and equitable development, as the name suggests itself, is to just make sure that we are a developmental continent in many ways, and of course mostly developmental states. So within TrustAfrica we are looking at what are the key sectors that will push development forward, and mostly we look at the development that we are championing. Should be as inclusive, fair, just, and as equitable as possible. So we focus mostly on trade, inclusive trade and supply chains, to make sure that the conditions that are available for farmers, conditions that are available for cross borders, conditions that are available for traders are conducive enough for them to get a fair value distribution in the trading arrangements. But also we focus more on agriculture because of its importance in driving economies, but also in holding communities together. So within that, we focus on the policy, we focus on especially smallholder farmers, rural women that are participating in the agriculture space, to make sure that at least the conducive policy frameworks around that, but also mostly that what is the agriculture that we want on the continent? What is the agriculture that we want for the young farmer? What is the agriculture that we want for the rural women? And what is it that this is the agriculture that is the backbone of most economies, including my own country, Malawi? What is that kind of agriculture that we want? So our work does focus on that. And of course, we look at financing for development within equitable development itself, and then climate justice as a subsector also that impacts on development. So most of these are some of the key programmatic areas that we are focusing on.
So of course, when I started, I mentioned that we met a long time ago, and the reason why I started this is because you have been engaged in issues that have to do with equitable development from a grassroots level, starting with the smallholder farmers. Of course, at that time, issues of climate change were beginning to really become an issue, but they were not as pronounced as they are today. Issues of financing. I mean, this year we started with a whole new configuration of the aid architecture, the financing infrastructures, among others. And so here you are attending this Baraza with several other social movements. Maybe let's trace your life backwards. You know, I remember at some point when we interfaced, not only were you doing this work with NASFAM, but you also did a leadership program with the Southern Africa Trust, which I was part of. Maybe let's just track back and see how your experiences have helped you to position yourself to be able to do the kind of work that you are doing today.
Yeah, thank you. So with the farmers, especially my work with the National Smallholder Farmers Association, and that work, that was 18 years of work, which I hold so dear to the experiences that I have, but also the kind of it's shaping the interests and the passions that we need to seek within the work that I'm doing. So I think within that space, when I was working and continue to work with the farming communities, what we see is you have on one hand the farmer, and on one hand this particular farmer is first of all a person.
Yeah.
The person who is seeking a better life for himself, for his families, but also for the communities that they are. So in terms of how they are engaging within the sector is what I think the experiences that I've had in terms of looking at, on one hand, an individual farmer, the institutions that engage with this particular farmer, and then the support or the catalytic support that the particular farmer is getting. So that I think it's the experiences that then over time you would see these particular conditions keep on changing. So those conditions are internal to the farmer, internal to the organizations and institutions that the farmer is participating in, and for some of those are also external, like issues of climate change. Now it's how now these particular systems and individuals and conditions are now responding to both the internal and external factors that are making it possible for this particular farmer to attain the livelihood and just sustain the livelihood that they need. And basically it's about dignified living for everyone. So passing through the leadership for change, I think that's what we call that program, the leadership for change, was really to look at any given level. Leadership, it is catalytic. So you first of all have to lead yourself. So it means that as a person, you have to raise your consciousness so that I think even being at this particular baraza and understanding the power within, it first of all it starts with your consciousness as a person, and then that consciousness connects with another consciousness, that another awoken person, and then you create a force together. So that begins with leadership. So leadership for change is how best am I leading myself as a person? How best am I leading with others as a person? And how best are we leading our institutions or whatever we are doing? So that has been, I think, the way that has shaped a different thinking within me, going through those kind of mentorship and leadership programming, and then looking at that I think we always say the earth is our oyster, and so is the spaces that we are working. So when you are working, having spent a lot of time working at a micro level, you also see that there is a need and there has to be connection working at a regional and a micro level. And this is where my interest, I think, also grew to start to say how best can we so contribute to the work in shaping the Africa we want, or shaping the agriculture we want, or basically shaping the living that we want, since we are living beings. So this is, I think, the essence of even connecting at this social movements Baraza. So a space like where we are today at the Social Movement Baraza, I think it is somehow takes off your technical footprints as a person, because then you realize that whatever we are talking about, whether we talk about robotics, AI, if it's precision agriculture, now you're going to high level industrialization and all these things, at the center you're looking at a human being. And how is this particular human being dignified? So I think that is, I think the wake-up call that this particular Baraza wakes up, and maybe that's the importance and the relevance of social movements. Because the social movements, it is not just looking at the hardware of what is making life tick. It is also looking at the software of what we are. So when we are here, and you begin to say, what is it that we can change? How do we change? How do I recognize that voice, the voice of a young person, the voice of the rural farmer, the voice of a scientist, the voice of a, and then together we make this formidable science. Said, how do we challenge and really create alternatives that work for us? Because where we are now, we know that the systems at the moment, they are not really delivering the aspirations of the people. So it is these social movements that we are connecting the different voices, so that together when we meet, I'm talking climate, he's talking youth, they are talking technology, they are talking agriculture, but at the end of it, it is about how are we delivering the aspirations of the people. So I think that is the essence of the social movements where we are.
So
thank you, Prof.
Having worked at a local level with smallholder farmers in Malawi nationally means that you have appreciated the role of different actors, and in particular civil society / social movements. Maybe let's talk a bit about the state of civil society and social movements in Malawi at the moment. So somebody comes in, yes, you are from Malawi, you've been working on these issues, but let's look holistically. What does civil society look like in Malawi? What is the state? I mean, there are so many issues that are confronting the world today, and civil society is the voice of the voiceless. But one would want to know, what exactly is the state of civil society and social movements in Malawi?
Yeah, that is a deeper question. I think a reflection at where we are, because it would appear that we are, as at least for the civil society space in Malawi, we progressed at some point. But now either we are stagnant or we need to recalibrate ourselves as civil society. And why I say so is that I think it's to when we look at who is civil society and which are the spaces they are occupying, and how are they connecting the different conversations. So I think that there is where we currently need to do a bit of work, because within civil society, I think we had, as if everywhere else, we had champions, we had leaders. And these leaders that we're looking up to, say either in the economic justice struggles, in the gender justice struggles, in the land justice struggles, they have progressed and probably now are part of the state machinery, for instance. So with their movement, you find that there was somewhat a vacuum that was created, which brings the question on how do we sustain leadership within, and who is owning this particular agenda. So I think in terms of where we are is where we need to. We are in the process of refining that and really making sure that the aspect of social movement, as it were, I think we focused more on the civic actors, but as distinct. So working either in silos, but not necessarily creating a movement that can stand the test of time, that can also stand the test of leadership changes across. So this is where we are. That I think it's a bit still shaken now to say that particular voice, I think we were not very well prepared when co-optation happens, especially when a leader in the social movement crosses the space to become either a political leader, a member of parliament, or a government, or a private sector, or So we were not very clear in terms of having our leadership trajectory pine out and really intentionally building leaders. So I think we are at a stage now where we see the booming, the young generation coming up and taking a stand and taking the leadership, taking power even, because as we all know, power is never given, it is taken. So we see the interest, the upcoming, the youth now taking charge in terms of leading the struggles, but also driving change. So I think this is where we are, and for social movements, it is an opportune time for social movements to grow and then sustain itself, as it were.
So yesterday there was a session that looked at social movements and political power. or rather phrase differently, the relationship between social movement and the state. And that is always one of the most vexing issues in every country, because social movements generally and by nature demand for accountability. They speak truth to power, and the response from the state is usually very confrontational, controlling, etc. What is the state in Malawi between, social movements and political power?
Yeah, I think at the moment, I would say it's, I think visibly, you would think it's cordial, but they're invisible undertones that we also begin to notice. So you find there are platforms that are very inclusive visibly, but sometimes you also find there are traits where if the people are outspoken, they are either taken for questioning, and whether that is in good faith or not in good faith, I think it's left for us to see. So you would see that, and I think for that, it's where now you need to we need to focus more on movement building, other than rallying the struggle around a particular individual, because then you become the target, for example, or you become, it is their struggle, it is not our struggle. So I think there is work on both sides, both in terms of that, but there are certain connotations that challenge civic actors in a way that either you become targeted, or if you're targeted, if then you are not convicted based on your individual value system, you probably crosses the floor, and when you do, you shake the very foundations that you are challenging.
So back to your sector, which is the environment, agriculture, climate change. When the cyclone Idai hit Southern Africa, in particular Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, the response in Malawi was very fascinating, because it seemed as if the groups there and the communities were anticipating that something of that nature could happen. They drew from indigenous traditional knowledge systems, and so the damage to infrastructure was huge, but not so much to human lives compared to Mozambique and Zimbabwe. So one would imagine that there is a better understanding and maybe organization around environmentally inclined organizations, agriculture, climate change. Maybe we take a deep dive into that sector and analyze the state of civil society interventions. TrustAfrica is one, but there are many others.
There are many others,
doing that. So, as somebody who is very active in that space, what are some of the emerging insights or reflections that you want to make around, how Malawi in particular is ready to respond to environmental concerns? I mean, this is our existential issue now.
I think we made strides because of maybe 3-4 critical conditions that found us ready. One, we are still very much community-driven. I think in terms of community philanthropy or solidarity around communities is still very strong. So you see it in funerals, you see it in weddings, you see it when another one is maybe facing catastrophes of that nature. So that was not different when the cyclones hit. And the only difference was that this is where now all actors mostly came together to then respond to what each community was leading. So you find traditional leadership, faith leadership, local-based, community-based organizations, all rallying together to respond to. But you find they were repairing bridges, not with external support per se, but with the expertise and resources they have gathered within. So that's, I think that is one way that probably we can also lane from the environmental movements and even the climate change and civil society networks have resulted into. But it is a way where you really say what is philanthropy meaning to this particular community? So literally defining and leveraging on the cultural and socially accepted ways of responding to challenges and disasters that led us to where we are. So we have the community coming together, mobilizing resources and define. So probably we need to establish a woodlot here. So the leadership, the traditional leadership, faith leadership, youth, and schools, they all rally towards that. Then you had farm organizations also supporting the diaspora, even also supporting, mobilizing resources from the diaspora and really responding to these. You find there were a lot of citizen-led initiative that came. So when government was even coming, most of these other communities were already upheld by social movements and civil society actors and just acts of goodwill that were entrenched in the way, in the culture and the social norms that people have.
So finally, let's end by looking at your reflections on the barazas that have taken place. You know, the first one in Harare, the second one in Johannesburg, and now we have the third one. But in between here, there have been meetings in Dakar, etc. What are some of the reflections that you have, or some of the themes that you see reoccurring, and maybe some of your takeaway messages? Going home, today is the end of the conference. What would be some of your takeaway messages going on?
I actually see there's been growth and deepening of in terms of the conversations and the resolve to act. I think one was on the issue of climate justice. I think from the 2022 Baraza in South Africa, to now, you see now it has become more urgent to act in terms of how do we really deal with this issue around climate justice, looking at the communities, but also how then do we reclaim sovereignty around the issue. Then secondly, I think I have also noted what the free movement of people can mean to conversation and deepening and strengthening solidarity. In South Africa, we did not have Nigeria and others because of the visa. But you now see with the participation of everyone, the voice in terms of just how we are building solidarity and also just sharing the narratives, that common developing common agenda and the driving ownership. We see it really grow, that growth in that area, and then also I think it cements the need for the freedom of movement for people to connect and make solidarity happen. Then I think we've talked quite a lot on youth and meaningful participation. I think here we see that growth, that the spaces and even the agenda around youth inclusion and participation and leadership is becoming alive even within the social movement itself. Then of course we see, because we are human beings, really entrenching arts and culture not as a side and a silo, just when we need to refresh and entertain ourselves, but it becomes part and parcel of the struggle, part and parcel of the alternatives that we see. So I think this Baraza has, for me, has really connected those dots and really say how are we driving and making sure that we are as inclusive as possible, but also leveraging on the different skills that we have on the continent and within the movements.
I always end by asking my guest, so who is Beatrice?
Oh, Beatrice. Okay. Beatrice is first of all a daughter of Malawi. I am a Malawian to the core. I love Malawi, and I aspire to see a better Malawi. And as our president always says, a better Malawi is possible, and we begin from where we are. Then secondly, Beatrice is also a wife, a mother of two lovely children, and Beatrice is passionate. For me, I am passionate on all things farming, and I'm inspired by the young generation. So as I get older, I'm not afraid of pulling others and watch the youth lead. So this is me, a Pan-African in this case, within the province of Malawi, as we are saying here.
And of course, I look forward to welcoming you to study your PhD with us.
Yes.
This is my way of making sure that you actually go on and register. So I'm already announcing it here.
It is on record, and I'll have to be held accountable on that one. Yes.
Yeah. So we look forward to welcoming you so that you can deepen, the analysis,
That's
the research,
right. Yeah.
the knowledge on the interface between philanthropy and agriculture. And as we spoke earlier, this is an area that is under-researched, and so the contribution that we're going to make to knowledge is massive, but also the contribution to policy, to practice, among others. So that's something that I think we'll be looking forward to work with you on, assist on, but also it will be a demonstration to others that, the sky is really the limit. You can do all of these things and still top it up by becoming an authority in that field. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. And yes, thank you for bringing that one. I look forward to joining. The philanthropy space with an agriculture angle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was Beatrice Makwenda, the Program Officer for Equitable Development with TrustAfrica. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.